Welcome everyone. Thanks for joining us today for this Manufacturing Marketing Group webinar, Stop Pitching Products and Win More Business. So in this webinar, you're going to learn what might be a brand new idea about how to grow your business. And you may be astounded or perhaps appalled, I'm not sure, that you can actually grow your business without pitching products. And we're going to show you how to do it and tell you why it works. Everyone who registered for the webinar will get a copy of the slide deck and a link to the recording, and we'll send this out via email within about 24 hours after this live broadcast. And everyone is in listen-only mode. That means you can't speak to us directly via your computer or your phone, but we do want you to interact. And the way to interact is if you find the questions pane on your control panel, you can type in comments or questions anytime they come to mind. And we'll have 2 Q&A sessions, time allowing, for this webinar, and we'll take your questions in at those 2 sessions. And once again, this webinar is being recorded and it will be available to everyone via the slide deck and the recording. This webinar is presented and created by Manufacturing Marketing Group, or MMG. And if you don't already know us, we help manufacturing companies grow their business and gain market share with advanced strategy, digital tactics, and all about business development. Speaking today, my name is Bruce McDuffie. I'm the principal here at MMG, bringing 20 plus years of business, marketing, and sales experience in the manufacturing sector to you today. And for the past 4 years, I've been a consultant, and we operate marketing services as well for manufacturing. Your co-presenter today is Rick Hosmer, and Rick is a designer and writer for over 30 years with industry experience. And Rick helps manufacturing clients attract new customers, alleviate sales challenges, and get ahead of their competition. He's responsible for client brand strategy and marketing tactics at Klunt Hosmer, and he's got talent for creating appealing brand images, clear messaging, strong visual communications, and performance-based websites. Welcome, Rick.
Well, thanks, Bruce. Hello, everybody. I'm excited to share some of these core concepts of the Stop Pitching Products sales approach with Bruce today.
Great to have you on the webinar, Rick. And Thanks. We've also got Cassidy in the background. Cassidy's working in the question pane, and she'll be moderating our questions today. Welcome, Cassidy.
Hello, everybody.
Okay, before we get started, I'd like to learn a little bit about the audience, and we find this is always interesting. And I have 2 questions for the audience. The first one is, it's an easy one, don't worry. And the question is, where are you located? Are you Western, Central, or Eastern US, America's outside the US, or something else? Give it a few seconds. See where everyone's, and I'll share this too with the audience so you can see where other people are hailing from today. Give it a few more seconds. Okay. Looks like a pretty good spread today, folks. You can see a pretty even spread with throughout the US and 1 or 2 folks outside. And one other question, this is more relevant to the audience today, or the topic today. What is your role in the go-to-market strategy at your company? Are you the CEO or president? Are you the marketing leader, sales and marketing leader, or you don't have a marketing strategy, or you provide input to the strategy? Which one of those best describes your role in go-to-market strategy? Give it a few more seconds. Folks warmed up to participate in the polls. We're not going to kill you today with the polls, but we've got a couple more here today. Okay. Got 64% voting. We want to do better than that, folks. Okay, I'm going to go ahead and close it out. So it looks like we've got marketing leader, sales and marketing leader, and input. Okay, thanks for sharing that, folks. Appreciate that. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to Rick to go through our agenda today. Rick?
Yeah, thanks, Bruce. So here are our goals for this webinar today. By the end of this session, we hope that you will understand why pitching products to generate sales, while it's very common, isn't the most effective approach. You'll also learn what you should be pitching instead of product specifications. You'll understand the approach of differentiating your company and creating trust through expertise and problem solving. And we'll have a couple of case studies that will show how this approach, as appearing as an expert, has been successful for our clients. And in the end, we'll have time for a Q&A session where we'll answer questions and hopefully share further insight on how to make the sales approach work for your company. So here's Bruce to kick off the concept.
Thanks, Rick. So why does it fail? Let's hit it right on the head here. Why does pitching products fail? And when I say pitching products, what I'm talking about is when you share information about features and benefits about your product or even details about your company. That's what I call pitching products. And there's two problems. And I'm going to get the tough love out of the way here. First, folks, tough love is nobody cares about your product. Nobody cares about your company. Nobody cares about your employees. I know that sounds harsh, but what they do care about is what each of those things mean to them. And that's key. And then there's also the timing issue. At any given moment, somebody sees a product pitch, whether it's an ad or some other form, only less than 3% are in a buying mode. In other words, they're ready to buy. So if they're not in a buying mode and they see a product pitch, what do? They ignore it. Now, I know some of you are skeptical about this idea, but I've tested and proven this in live marketing arenas, and I can tell you it works great. I like to look at it. I know many times the funnel is many stages of the funnel, but for manufacturing, there's really two stages. There's the engagement stage, and then there's the product pitch stage. Now, I'm not saying you never talk about your product. Obviously, you have to pitch your product and pitch your company when people are in that buying mode. What I'm saying is don't pitch your product at the top of the funnel for engagement or for awareness. That's where the people don't care. So think about the funnel as two stages, the engagement or awareness at the top, no pitching there, and then the product description and pitching goes at the bottom when people are well along into the sales cycle, sometimes when it's called the short list. So let's talk more about why product pitching fails to engage. There's two reasons again. One is the people are not ready to buy when they see your message. See this orange circle here? That little black dot there, that's the portion of people who are ready to buy your product when they see your message. It's tiny. I think it's less than 3%. And the other reason is that product pitching, unfortunately, makes you sound just like your competitors. If you look at your own website, look at your products and your capabilities, you look at a competitor's website's product and capabilities, chances are they're going to look very similar. And when your audience perceives your widget basically the same as another widget, where do they go? They go to price. And they go to lowest price because they don't perceive the difference. When you share expertise instead of pitching the product, that's when you can start to differentiate. And we'll talk more about that. Rick, I think you had a comment on this too.
Yeah, that's absolutely. A key factor in all of this is always remembering that people aren't looking to buy your product. They're looking for a solution to the problem that they're dealing with in their business situation. So when you are trying to sell a product, that pitch can fall on deaf ears, again, especially if it's in that only 3% or less zone that are ready. But if you can help them solve their problems, they're always ready to listen.
And imagine this, folks. Put on your imagination caps for a second. Think about your city where you live, and think about the local arena. For example, here in Denver, we have the Pepsi Center. Pepsi Center has about 15,000 people. So imagine if I told you I can fill your local arena with people from your target audience. I can put 15,000 people in the Pepsi Center or whatever your arena is who are from your target audience. And imagine you get 5 minutes to talk to them. What would you say to them? And I actually have a poll here where I would like you to answer that question. What would you say to your target audience? I mean, if I could fill the Pepsi Center with your target audience, that would be fantastic. It's hard to do, but imagine that I could. Give it a few minutes, a few seconds here. Let folks vote. Looks like we may be leading the audience a bit here, Rick. Either that or the folks are savvy out there. And I've asked this in front of sales team. Ask it in front of a sales team, and they get all excited and they think about it and they say, all right, I'm going to talk about our company, and we've been in business for 50 years and we just launched this great product and it's got these features. Salespeople always do that. Nothing against salespeople, love the sales teams. Okay, you guys mostly got the right answer. Yeah, and here's the difference. I'm going to go explain this. I'll hide the poll. Here's another picture of a diagram. You've got the same target audience, and this black circle here, that represents the people in your target audience who have some kind of common problem. And if you think about your target audience and you really understand your audience, you know what that issue is that they struggle with. So if you get up in front of the audience and you talk about your product, talk about your company and your company history, think about that little black dot on the previous slide. Very few people care because they're not in a buying mode. But if you get up there, you tell the audience how they can solve a problem or how their lives can be a little bit better and how you can help them do that, that's why you get that kind of engagement. It's a huge difference. And that's why you should stop pitching products for awareness. Quick story, I worked for a company. I was a global marketing director. We made humidity measurement instruments, and we always shared pitched products, features and benefits. So finally one day I said, let's test this idea. So there's an organization called Global Spec. They have an email newsletter that goes out to 600,000 people around the world. We put a product pitch in an ad in this newsletter. We got 150 clicks. The next month, same newsletter, same audience, same ad position. We offered an ebook, a 20-page ebook, and that ebook got 1,500 clicks. So 150 with the product, 1,500 with the ebook. That's the kind of results you can expect. And with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Rick to talk more about this idea of instead of pitching, share expertise. Rick?
Thanks. So, of course, companies are constantly pushing products or their service attributes, and when they do, the assumption is that they exaggerate that benefit to the customer, and that's caused a trust gap. Customers don't always believe what they hear. I mean, we've grown used to not believing what we hear in advertising, but when you share expertise, that puts the sales rep in a position of leadership and control. If they can share insight to solving the customer's problem, show the customer maybe even a bigger problem that they weren't aware of, or somehow reframe that problem, they will be seen as a resource and not as a vendor. And in any business negotiation, you don't want to be seen as just a vendor, because like Bruce talked about earlier, when parity is perceived between competitive companies, then the buying decision just comes down to the lowest price. So obviously people want to buy from people that they trust, and nothing builds that trust like authentic expertise, which is achieved by helping the customer learn something. So we often go into a sales situation with a flawed assumption, and that assumption is that the customer actually understands what they need. But sometimes their greatest need is actually to figure out what they need. the customer doesn't always have all the answers. A good sales rep can help them find out what they need by looking at their problem with fresh eyes. They can look at the issue and have communication with the company about that outside of the excuses or rationale that the company might have themselves, and then take that opportunity to reframe the challenge and teach the customer something that they didn't know before. I mean, great sales reps, they win the sale by understanding the customer's business better than the customer understands it themselves. But the question is, how do you become the expert? How can you understand the customer's business better than they do? Well, it takes time and effort. It doesn't come easy, or every sales rep would already be doing it. But it comes from asking the right questions with the right attitude. And it comes from having insight into solutions that make sense for that customer. Now, two guys, Matthew Dixon and Brent Adamson, wrote a book called The Challenger Sale: Taking Control of the Customer Conversation. Now, that book is an excellent resource to learn the details of how to promote your company's strengths, change customer assumptions, and help those customers take action and not delay the buying decision. The perfect scenario really comes from the customer's willingness to join the sales team on what the writers of that book call a solutions journey. It requires a commitment to help the customer find the right answer to the problem, not simply your company's answers to the problem. But of course, if those solutions happen to be offered by your company, that's what will result in a sale. So to start this off right, you've really got to understand your audience. And Bruce is going to walk you through key aspects of doing that.
As Rick said, the first step to making this work, where you share expertise instead of pitching your products, the first step is to know your audience. Not just to know who they are, but understand them, understand their pain, their problem, or even their aspiration. Because when they see any type of message from your company, they ask themselves, WIFM. WIFM is what's in it for me. And we all do that, whether we're buying a candy bar at the checkout lane in the supermarket, or we're buying a new car, whatever it is. We ask ourselves, what's in it for me? We do it even subconsciously sometimes. So you need to understand the audience. The diagram you see on this slide, I call it the sweet spot topic of engagement. And you can download this. If you look in your control panel, look for the handout section, and you can download a worksheet if you want to go through this exercise. So know your audience. And then, because the idea is once you know your audience, you can find a topic to discuss, just like in front of the auditorium, in front of the audience in the arena. You pick that right topic, and that's where you get that fantastic engagement. So you dig into your audience, know their pain, passion, or aspiration or problem, and at the same time think about, well, what expertise do we have that can solve that problem? What expertise do we have that can make their lives a little bit better? That's what you're going for. Now, a quick note about expertise: you can't fake it. If you uncover a pain or a problem in your target audience and you don't have the real expertise, you can't fake it. You've got to have authentic expertise, and you can find it in your R&D team. You can find it in your customer service team. There's expertise all over your company, and you need to find those experts and help them participate, share their knowledge, share their expertise. The humidity example I gave, that company had some of the best experts in the world to understand the science of moist gas or humidity. And those experts had incredible information we were able to extract and share with our target audience. So think about your expertise and how that intersects with the pain of your audience, and that intersection, that's your topic. That's where you're going to build your content. That's what you're going to use for engagement instead of pitching your product. So Rick, let's talk more about this becoming the go-to expert with this topic and differentiating.
Yeah, a key factor is that differentiation. The key is being perceived as an expert is to understand how you and your company or product are different than what the customer might already be thinking. I mean, you need to show this differentiation in how you approach the sales relationship, how you deliver insights to the customer, the engagement you have with them, and how your company looks while it's doing this. Bruce, I know you've got some key aspects of expert positioning that you can run us through. Just checking. Bruce, you there?
Oops, sorry, Rick, I had it on mute. Yeah, thanks for that.
So we're up for you to take us through some key points of differentiation and positioning as an expert.
Okay, thanks, Rick. And I have a secret formula I'm going to share with the audience. But just to put a point on it here, I talk to manufacturers all the time, and they struggle with differentiating their product and their company. This is how you differentiate. You differentiate your company and your brand by sharing that expertise, because manufacturers aren't doing that. So if you can be the one in your space to do it, you can really gain advantage. The secret formula is on this slide. TOMA plus credibility plus reciprocity. TOMA stands for top of mind awareness. And by sharing expertise, you get top of mind awareness, you get credibility, which is the same as trust that Rick was just talking about, and you get reciprocity. Because think about it, if you share knowledge around a topic that helps your audience, that's a gift. And when you give a gift to people in your target audience, they want to reciprocate. And that comes in the form of buying from you, and a lot of times buying from you at a little bit higher price. And if you can get TOMA, credibility, and reciprocity, you can really grow your business. It makes a huge difference in the top of the funnel awareness stage and engagement. So Rick, let's talk more about positioning these as an expert.
Yeah, so positioning yourself and your company as an expert, like you had said, allows you to achieve top of mind awareness, and it's something that is communicated while you're talking with the customer. But it works best if that positioning, that expert positioning, is planted in the customer's head before they even meet with you or meet with your sales rep. So think about, what materials do you provide to the customer prior to that sales call? What sales materials are left behind after that sales conversation? And what do customers see and receive when they go to your website that enhances the expert positioning and top of mind awareness that you're trying to build? Now, from my perspective is as a graphic designer and a writer. So these things are really critical to the work that I do. And I'll share some insight about those expert positioning tips during a case study later in the presentation. So to wrap this, it's all about managing the complete customer sales experience and understanding it's not about what you sell, it's how you sell. So remember, we talked about that book, The Challenger Sale. Well, the research that came out and was used in that book was developed from an organization called CEB. And that research showed that what they call the purchase experience is vital to increasing customer loyalty, and customer loyalty is what drives sales. Now, the purchase experience consists of offering unique and valuable perspectives on that customer's market. It helps them navigate alternative solutions to the challenge that they're facing. It provides ongoing advice or consultation to them. Again, that's not just selling a product, but providing advice and consultation. That helps the customer avoid potential landmines, bad decisions, things that they're overlooking that could cause them difficulty down the line. That buying experience educates that customer on new issues and outcomes in their industry. And two important aspects, that the supplier itself makes it easy to buy from them, because sometimes the buying process can be way more difficult than it needs to be. So a good buying experience makes that easy and that supplier, that person that they're talking to who's making that sales call, has widespread support across the entire organization. So it's not just about, hey, the person that I'm talking to understands me or knows me and trusts me, but what about people outside of that person's office? How much awareness do you have throughout that company? So lots of salespeople complain that they would be more successful, but the customer really only cares about getting the lowest cost. And that actually, in the research done by CEB, proves that to not be true. In their study, and the chart shows these things, in the study only 9% of customer loyalty is based on what they call value to price ratio, or being the lowest cost. But 53% is based on the experience the customer receives from the sales rep. And that's what we've been talking about today, that expert positioning from that sales rep. Customer surveys show that they see very little difference between one supplier and another in terms of products and services. You sell a certain product, your competitor sells a similar product. It's hard for the customer to differentiate between the two. But they see a huge difference in the sales experience itself, the actual sales conversations that they have with a supplier on a regular basis. In the survey, customers reported that some sales reps, they actually, this is their quote, robbed me of an hour of my life. Wow, how would you like to have that be the feeling when you leave a sales presentation? But other reps, and these are the most successful ones, would take the time to provide information so interesting or valuable that the customer said that they would have been willing to pay for the conversation. So they gained something of value from that sales rep. And that's that difference that makes such a huge 53% impact on customer loyalty. And that loyalty is won not in product development and not in your advertising, but in that sales relationship. Because again, customers are not looking to buy something when they're talking to you, they're looking to learn something.
And this
so successful sales, yeah, I would just say it was based on what you sell, not on how you sell, like I've mentioned before.
And this is a tough lesson for salespeople, because salespeople love their product. They want to talk about that product. And for them to step back and say, hold on, before we talk about the product, let's talk about you. And let me show you how I can solve your problems. Or even, as Rick was saying, the challenger, here's some problems I see in companies like yours. Here's some expertise I can share. That can be a tough one, but boy, does it work. Okay, that brings us to our Q&A session, folks. And if you've got a question, or type it in now, and we'll be glad to address it. We will have another Q&A session at the end. So Cassidy, do we have any questions coming in from the audience?
Yep, we have a couple of questions, Bruce. Our first question is from Craig, and he wants to know, my salespeople will hate this idea. How do I get them excited about the idea?
That's a really common question, almost what we just talked about. Rick, I'm going to pass this over to you. You have that expertise.
Yeah. So here's the thing. If you think it's important for them, then you get to become the challenger and educate them, share your expertise on why this approach is the best solution to increase sales for them. Because really, if salespeople hate the idea and just can't grasp it and don't believe it, you have to ask yourself if they're really the right salesperson for you. Great salespeople should understand that this approach works. The data is there to prove it out. So give them the resources they need to develop their own expertise, provide them with materials like quality sales materials, an effective website, expert positioning, advertising that reinforces what they're trying to communicate through their expert positioning, and let them try it out for themselves. But if those sales reps are really hate that idea and have no interest in the approach, they're really not going to grow any further as a sales rep than what they've already received by pitching products. Yeah,
the other part about that is that salespeople, they want to do anything that's going to help them sell more. So if you position this as a way that they can sell more, bigger products, then yeah, they'll go for it. Next question, Cassidy.
Yep. We have one from Linda. Linda wants to know, how will they know what I offer if I don't talk about it?
Great point. And this is a point I should have made earlier, but I didn't. The point is, when you do share your expertise and you share your knowledge, you do have to tie it to your brand and your offering. So I'm not saying talk about your product and your offering. I'm saying share your expertise, share your knowledge, but make sure they know where it comes from. Because I was talking to a guy the other day, and he was saying, man, that was some great commercials on the Super Bowl, but I can't remember who made the commercials. They missed the brand connection. You have to make that connection. Great point. Let's take one more question, Cassidy, then we'll move on to the second part, where we're going to talk about a six steps on how you can do it. So Cass, one more question.
Okie doke. This question's from Sam, and they want to know, how can I figure out my audience pain points or problems?
One way that really works well, and I'll talk about this in the case study later, is to ask your salespeople, ask your technical support desk, ask your product development people, just ask around the company and ask them, what kind of questions do you get from our customers and from people even throughout the target audience? You can also do primary research. Primary research can be really expensive, but it can be extremely effective because you're asking people in your target audience who may not even know about you. So those are two ways. Okay, we've got a couple. I see Shelly's got a question. We'll take your question, Shelly, in the next session, and that looks like a good one. So here's how it works. By now you might be wondering, maybe you're thinking, all right, Bruce, you might have something here. You might be wondering how you can try it or how you can implement it. So I've got a 6-step process. Step 1, make sure you understand the people in your target audience. And remember the diagram that I shared? Learn about your audience and find that common pain point. For example, with humidity, we found out that the pain point was humidity is a very hard measurement. It's very difficult to make and to do it with accuracy. So we found out that if we shared information about the science behind humidity, that people could make a better measurement. So the problem we solved was a better measurement of humidity. We solved it by sharing information about the science behind humidity. So sweet spot topic was, here's how you make a better measurement. So find that pain point and then choose a pain point or a problem where you have the expertise, the authentic expertise. Engage with your subject matter experts, find out what they know, and they're going to think the information they have is just common knowledge, but it's not. It is really unique knowledge. Then you build your content. Build an ebook or a white paper or webinars. You build that content. That's your new pitch, if you will. Your new pitch is, here's our knowledge and expertise. And then create and execute an inbound and an outbound strategy to put that information out there. Just start spreading the news that you can help solve problems in your target audience. And then step 6, rake in the business. Rick, anything to add on those steps?
Well, yeah, one thing in step 4, Bruce, and that's because this is really my area of expertise. You need to make sure that that content that you provide, the ebooks, white papers, webinars, if you have sales materials, brochures, your website, like I mentioned before, they really need to be well designed and professional so that they back up your expertise position. Because no one who's really an expert is going to be perceived that way if the things that they show don't look that way.
Thanks, Rick. Now we've got a couple of case studies. This is a client that I worked with up in Massachusetts, and they make a meter, a digital meter, like you see here. And this digital meter will take readouts from, might be level gauges in huge tanks or flow meters or whatever, and it displays the result of the gauge. They're typically, They're typically wired what's called a 4 to 20 milliamp current loop. This company was doing webinars, and they would do about 1 or 2 webinars a month about the product, about this product. And I said, how's it going? They said, pretty good. We get 10 or 20 people. I said, would you like to get more? They said, yeah, I'd like to get a lot more. So I said, go and ask your tech support desk what kind of questions they get on a regular basis. They came back to me and they said, we get a lot of questions about 4 to 20 milliamp current loops. And I said, that sounds promising. That's a pain point we can help with. They said, well, 4 to 20 milliamp, it's really easy. We don't see how that can be a pain point because it's 4 screws and 2 wires. And I said, well, it is a pain point because they're asking about it. So let's try it. So we built a webinar about everything you want to know about 4 to 20 milliamp current loops. And they had 643 people sign up for that webinar. Same audience they invited to the product webinar, they invited to this knowledge webinar, and they had 643 people. It was a huge hit. I think that webinar, the recording, has gotten 50,000 views on YouTube. Incredible success. And that's the difference. Instead of pitching the product, they shared their expertise. And you'll see that every time. Test it. I challenge you guys to test it. You'll see the same type of result. And Rick, you have a case.
I do. You might wonder when you see this slide why I'm showing a trashed classic car next to a restored classic car. And actually, these 2 images symbolize your company's brand image and the look of your sales materials. Like I talked about previously, one of the best ways to position yourself as an expert and be believable is to look like an expert. So I remember a client one time who hired my firm to redesign their company logo and their stationery package. The first time they used their new letterhead and new design was in a large proposal that they had sent out to a potential customer. That contract, which was the second highest fee the company had ever proposed, was approved by the customer. Now that didn't surprise my client because they said we're really good at what we do and we should have got that business. But he told me that what surprised him was he didn't receive any pushback on the price. He told me, my customers always try to negotiate a lower price. And what he realized was that for the first time, the company looked like the expert that it was. The company looked like it was worth the higher price. While before, with the logo and the proposal materials and the things that they had that represented them, they were unprofessional and inherently looked like they were a low-cost provider. So the best sales experience, no matter how you deliver it, it's less likely to get the job done if it isn't backed up with memorable expert impressions that the company or the customer can access away from the meeting and share with others in their organization, like your sales materials, a white paper, your brochures, your website. You want to make sure that those materials make you and your company look like the car on the right. Rather than the car on the left. Because when they are designed well, they enhance that impression of expertise, trust, and teaching that's conveyed by taking the sales approach. And in the competitive field of manufacturing sales, sometimes looking good is what gets that initial door opened so that you can close the deal. So now Bruce is going to lead us through some takeaways from today's webinar.
That's a great point, Rick. If you folks can get that 1-2 combination of the professional look and really valuable knowledge and expertise, that's an incredible 1-2 punch. You'll knock it out of the park, for another metaphor. Okay, we've got some couple of takeaways, then we've got a couple more questions coming in, and then Rick and I will both have an offer for everybody who attended today. So, not sure about this idea? I encourage you to test it. Test it just like I explained in earlier about take a product pitch, put it in an e-newsletter, take a knowledge information pitch and compare it. I guarantee you the knowledge will knock it out of the park. Your sales team will love you when you start providing those high quality leads. Collaborate with your team around your company. collaborate with customers, collaborate and find that sweet spot topic. Use that worksheet I provided and find that sweet spot topic and start developing some content. You'll be amazed. Make sure you're audience focused and not company focused. Usually what happens is when you share this idea with your sales team or whoever you share it with, they'll get excited and say, yeah, we have to start sharing our knowledge and our expertise. We got to tell them about our product more. That's usually the first response you get. Make sure you push back a little bit on that and say, no, we have to be audience focused. Propose a pilot program. If you've got a really hard case and people don't want to believe it, challenge them. Say, aren't we an innovative company? Here's an innovation. Let me have some resources and some time to prove this concept to you with a pilot program. Pilot program, a great pilot program, the best one is a webinar, like I described in that case. And as Rick said, if you want to be perceived as an expert, you've also got to look like one, so don't forget that branding component. Rick, do you have a couple of takeaways for our audience?
No, I mean, you nailed the one that I wanted to make sure was discussed. Again, that it's really easy to neglect those things. They cost money. You have to make an investment in them. It's not usually the manufacturing company's area of expertise regarding their branding and how they look, but I can't overemphasize how important it is. As you mentioned, Bruce, it's a complete part of the successful sales plan and approach.
Great. Thanks for that input, Rick. And I think we have time for a few more questions. Cassidy, any questions in the queue?
Yep, we've got a couple questions. One question is from Shelly, and Shelly wants to know, any suggestions for selling this concept up to the leadership in a hard-hitting, product-pushing manufacturing organization?
That's very common, Shelly, very common, because manufacturers make a product and they love that product, and that product is everything to everybody. So it's hard to come in and say, hey, new strategy, we're going to stop talking about the product so we can get more engagement and awareness. That's a tough one, I agree. The way to show it, the way to prove it to leadership is to use that pilot program idea. Say, okay, I understand this is hard for you to understand because you're not too bright. No, you don't want to say that. Say, I know this is tough to understand. Let me prove it to you. Let's do a webinar about knowledge expertise, and let's see how it works. Or do an A/B test with the ad. Say, I'll prove it to you with an A/B test. We're going to test A will be the product pitch, test B will be the knowledge, and those numbers will show up to prove this concept. Webinars are great because a webinar, people sign up for it and they give you information. So for example, if someone signs up to learn more about the science of humidity, chances are they've got a problem, needs to be solved. That's a lead. If you can deliver quality leads to your sales team from your pilot program, it's a winner. Anything to add to that, Rick?
Well, one thought that I had while you were talking, and so this is a unsolicited plug for you, Bruce, but I would say get your hands on Bruce's book that he'll be talking about in a minute, make it available to you, and get that to senior management. Let them read that, because the information in that book lays out this program really succinctly and smartly, intelligently, and really I think any smart leadership person in a manufacturing company would get it and be willing to do at least a pilot program based on that process.
Thanks, Rick. And also, Shelly, I wrote, when I first got into this business of marketing, consulting, and marketing services for manufacturing, I created an ebook. It's called the Manufacturer's Growth Manifesto, and it talks exactly about this question. Cassidy, I think we have time for one more question, then we'll wrap it up with our offers.
Okay, Sarah has a question, and she wants to know, in most manufacturing companies, we always need to show the payback. Do you have any tips or KPIs on tracking effectiveness as you move into these type of marketing materials?
Yes, absolutely. You have to have some tools in place, usually a marketing automation platform and a CRM. And the one I mentioned, I keep saying webinars are the best because you can track this revenue. If you do a webinar and you get 600 people to sign up and you put that into the pipeline, you tag it with the campaign, and then you can show opportunities created from that campaign. You can track it right down to revenue. Granted, attribution isn't 100%, but you can show a trend and you can show real contribution that the C-suite wants to see. KPIs could be, KPI has to be something where they fill out a form or give you their information to have it really count. So I hope that helps. So we're about out of time, folks. I would like to offer you a free copy of my book. It's, if you go to mmmatters.com/ebook, you can download a PDF copy, and it talks about pilot programs. It talks about getting buy-in from leadership. All the things we were getting questions from today are covered in that book. Or if you want a digital marketing consultation, I'm happy to help with that as well. And Rick, you have an offer for the audience too.
Yeah, we've got a PDF of a white paper. Again, this is emphasizing why great design is critical for manufacturing companies. There's a white paper you can download and a webinar that's been pre-recorded that you can listen to, and the link is there available on your screen.
Thanks, Rick. And as again, everyone will get a copy of this slide deck, so these links will be in there. And you can download this document, Why Great Design is Critical for Manufacturing Companies, right from the handouts section in your control panel. Finally, thank you everyone for spending time with us today. We are delighted that you took time out of your day to learn about how you can win more business when you stop pitching products. Thank you, Rick, for participating and sharing that great information.
Yep, my pleasure.
And thank you, Cassidy, for being a great question moderator.
Thanks, everybody.
Have a great day, everybody. We'll sign off now.